When we played the first game in the Chronicles trilogy last year, we saw some potential in its layered 2D approach, but the opening chapter set in China came across as a dry and lifeless encyclopedia entry. Since the second part was significantly delayed, we had some hope that the extra time would pay off in a more fun and interesting game. But despite more colorful visuals, India feels even more drab to play. From the very first sequence, we're reminded of many of the gripes we had with the first Chronicles. A nonsensical mechanic makes guards blind while chatting, allowing you to slip past them in broad daylight and even pickpocket someone while his buddy watches from a few feet away. As with Xiao Jun, your character Arbaz finds pieces of his personal backstory on scrolls inexplicably stashed in guarded chests, flung from the local palace to far-off Afghanistan, and sluggish controls test your patience throughout. The story follows Arbaz Mir as he clashes with high-ranking Templars among the occupying British soldiers. The conflict revolves around a large diamond tied to precursor ruins, as well as the box Xiao Jun was pursuing in China. There are some attempts at personal motivation, as Arbaz rendezvous with the princess and rescues his mentor, but the story feels flat and muddy overall. The still-painted cutscenes do little to connect you to the characters, and the plot just feels like a collection of dead ends.
Really? I probably haven't searched you thoroughly enough.
Maybe you should search me now.
I'm sorry, my love. I have to meet with a mead.
In terms of gameplay, India is essentially a new coat of paint on the same structure. Instead of having dogs in cages bark to alert the guards, there are roaring tigers, and so on. Most levels involve timing your movements to stay out of the guards' clearly painted vision cones, and you want to avoid killing anyone besides your primary targets. Stay merciful and unseen, and high scores will grant you incremental upgrades to your inventory and abilities. Other levels are based entirely on racing the clock, often having you chase an enemy or flee crumbling ruins. And since speed is the priority, you're forgiven any incidental deaths along the way. There are a few new ideas as well. A slight variation on the throwing knives are circular chakram, which can ricochet off walls to cut ropes and create distractions. There are also a couple points where you can use them to break lanterns, reducing enemy vision cones. Arbaz also has access to a trio of helix moves, which essentially act as superpowers, allowing you to cut down piles of enemies in combat and turn invisible. However, they don't have a clear justification in the game world, appearing to be the result of some kind of hack into the Animus, even though the present day is never referenced. Even more egregious gameplay segments have you crisscrossing levels to assemble disguises that Arbaz promptly throws away, and sniper sections that have you distracting and picking off guards that apparently can't hear you shooting at them over and over again from an adjacent rooftop. The levels themselves aren't strictly two-dimensional, as swings, bridges, and ziplines allow you to move between parallel layers. However, this doesn't really add any more depth. Aside from picking up small collectibles or rescuing hostages, you're still simply going from point A to point B. There's really no exploration involved. Oddly enough, a handful of challenge rooms outside of the main story actually are more interesting and open-ended. It's just a shame that there are only 6 small levels to try. On a technical level, the game does little to impress either. The artistic watercolor style and filters hardly mask the simple visuals. Environments load in awkwardly whenever you restart a checkpoint, and it's not unusual to see an out-of-place shadow or piece of debris, or to simply run through the wall of a crumbling building. Assassin's Creed Chronicles India isn't bad enough to be infuriating or to serve as a hilarious mockery. In fact, its overwhelming characteristic is that it's stiflingly boring. The clumsy controls and dull story simply aren't very fun, and it's another 5 to 6 hours that could be better spent on something else.